Hello and welcome to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You could tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. You could tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STLSN. You can use them two Twitter handles for updates on the show, news, notes, anything like that. Or for just suggestions, or you can email me at rbowlesbyjr314@gmail.com. Today we're going to get to some Cardinals actual on-the-field news. We'll definitely talk Max Scherzer, the hometown product. And we'll talk a little bit about the NBA. And then, as usual, a bunch of stuff after that. That also includes the hometown rundown. But first, we're going to start it with something that probably surprised you. Probably something you never even thought you would hear or anything like that. And definitely with off-the-field news to this kind of magnitude to where you get the FBI involved. And that's been this hacking scandal between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Houston Astros. The investigation basically goes like this. The FBI are investigating whether the Cardinals illegally accessed the computer database of the Houston Astros. Now, the breach that they're supposedly going after happened just over a year ago. But there's another report that they might have found that one could have happened before then. But the breach that being investigated by the FBI is a database called Ground Control, created by the Astros, that houses their scouting reports, medical information, draft scouting, trade info, anything like that. Now, the investigation's been going on for a while to where that the FBI is already far enough to have served subpoenas to St. Louis Cardinals and MLB electronic correspondence. The FBI also took computers, and there's actually two reports on this, that they actually took computers from Busch Stadium, or the more report that's coming out is that they took computers from an employee house that was at spring training. The document was originally released to Deadspin from a website. The original site was Annabin, which is a site used for hackers to get out their leaked information. Now, if you just think about what the information they might have, could have, maybe got, it doesn't sound like that big of a deal. But now you're at a point in society now where they could come down with the hammer hard on either the Cardinals as a whole or just the Cardinals employees that might be involved. Because I don't know if the recent reports are true or not. It's been said they're true. Who really knows that China's actually hacked our government database and gotten social security numbers and information on not only current employees but retirees and former employees. So if they're at a point where they can't catch that, they're going to go after this. It looks like that the main thing that was put out there was basically Bud Norris and trade rumors on him. First it was between the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Astros, and then it ended up being Bud Norris getting traded to the Baltimore Orioles. But they might be deep in this investigation, but we're not. As fans, as the media members that are out there, as the people that follow the team are kind of at a loss for what's really going on. They're not really letting so much out there to give you any kind of story. They're kind of just putting enough out there to give you a story. And it's kind of a perfect time for a kind of story like this to come out, because you're at the point of sports, definitely in St. Louis right now, you're only talking really about baseball on the field. And you're really not into the heyday. This is the first day of summer. But you're not really at that point yet where people are paying so much attention to the standings. Unless you're kind of hovering. And most teams are still kind of feeling themselves out fully. Most people start, worrying about the season at the All-Star break. So it's kind of good for us that want to yak about sports to give us actually something to talk about. But like I was saying, in this day and age, they're going to go after these people. And I know the usual sentence, like if you look into it, and I don't think that the FBI could go any higher than this, is 14 months. And that just seems like the thing for everything. He's going to jail for 14 months for this. I mean, I was in prison by Vatterott School for 14 months to give them a bunch of money for the littlest amount of education. So that invoice will be sent to Vatterott here today, but if 14 months kind of like seemed like the way to go, and if it's some low-level employee that maybe didn't like Jeff Lunau, that maybe says, hey, we were kind of seeing if they were taking anything from our database or using anything that we use in our database. And then we went in there again because, Jeff Lunau was an ass to me. But Jeff Lunau seems like that cocky guy. I'm not around him or nothing, but just in his interviews, the way he conducts himself, and the kind of stories you hear about how he thinks he created that whole Cardinals minor league system. And if he did, hats off to him because it's been very helpful with the Cardinals. But it just seems like that kind of guy with a guy lower than him, he would kind of be a dick. But with the other thing, the hacking and things that they're having trouble with getting, and they found something like this, oh, they're going to eat on it. The FBI's, this is probably going to be a lot longer than you would think. Even if they found the guys already, if they did all their, because they're going to want to make sure they got everything right on this one. Because they haven't figured out all the rest of them yet. And not the FBI trying to be fully right doesn't mean that they're going to just come down hard on the Cardinals. Like, what could the MLB actually do to the Cardinals in this situation? With the CBA, it's kind of hard to take draft picks away from teams. I mean, the only logical thing that they could do if they couldn't take away draft picks is maybe somehow take away the Cardinals at the trading deadline. And I don't think it'll be this season, because I don't think they're going to try to release too much information until probably the season's over. I mean, you wouldn't think that MLB would, even though they said they're fully corroborating the FBI, there's some inner workings in there where MLB is trying to keep the light off of it as much as they can to keep it on the field play. But like the only real logical thing to do if they were looking at this kind of data is to maybe revoke their trading. And I mean, that would be a harsh penalty too, and one hard to enforce, because how can you, if the Cardinals had injuries or anything like that, could you really stop a team from trying to help themselves and not hurt some of their players? So, with the way the MLB CBA is, which is basically made better for the players to never cause another strike like what happened in '94. And also teams, it's going to be hard for the MLB to do anything with the Cardinals. And people want to compare this to the New England thing. But did this really affect anything that happened on the field of play? Like what happened with deflated balls, that affects just every play that them balls are in play. Because you can say the draft info, they're and seeing what this other team got from these players. But most of the players that Houston's going to scout, being where they've been in the last few years, I think it was 106 losses or something average, maybe it was 103 over the past 3 years. Pretty much anybody they're evaluating, you want on your team. So, does that really affect the on-the-field stuff? Definitely 5 years from now when these players actually start coming up, even though you had a guy like Walker come up less than a year after being drafted. And you had guys like that over recent years. Bryant, I think Finnegan for Kansas City last year, who's now in the minor leagues, can't stay in shape. I mean, that's a story for another day, though. But also, in a way, it could have affected the on-field, though, if the Cardinals ever acted on it. But it didn't. And they didn't. And we don't know if the people that make the trades even were aware the information that they had. Bill DeWitt and John Mozeliak, they had no clue. Bill DeWitt said this was a roguish employee and they will be dealt with. But these things are just starting to happen more and more in sports. You're getting to a situation in sports to where you don't know what to do in these types of situations. You don't know what to take away from the Cardinals. And there's no looking back at any other case to see what you could possibly take. And you're going to see like certain things like this are going to start working into some of these CBAs for these teams, because now it's something you got to protect yourself against. But with the situation, all these teams are going to hire the most tech-savvy guys you've ever seen. There's going to be a lot of guys that are in these basements that you can't find them in. They'll be working for MLB teams now to stop something like this from happening. Because once this story came out, there was all these people that know how to do that kind of hacking stuff. We're trying to probably get into the Yankees, probably going to get in the Cardinals. Anybody's. Why not? Why not have that data? I mean, it's different if you're one of these guys, but if you're at home, I mean, wow, look what they do behind the scenes. That would be kind of something fun to look at. Like, I didn't check, but you wonder how many of them hits that Deadspin article got. So this is the bigger website, that's where most people seen it. Just on that story alone. Because it's intriguing. Because it's something you never get to see before. So I can probably tell you the traffic was pretty high that week on that website. And I bet you that the New York Times, who broke the story, and the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and the Washington Post, and all the other newspapers, they're probably getting a lot of hits on their websites. They're probably loving this. Because they're getting hits from all over now. Wow, what did the St. Louis guys say about this? Wow, what did the New York guys say about this? Because you're going to want a differing of opinion, because the St. Louis guys are going to try to knock it down. And all these New York guys or guys in Texas, anywhere, are going to try to make it look bad, make it look like it's a big hit to this well-run, which people almost say are the leaders in innovation. They're going to want to go with the Cardinals. Because this is the team you're losing to. And this is the team that you have to write for. They're losing to the Cardinals. I mean, look at the Bill Plaschke guy who said, well, this somehow leads to them beating Kershaw. That makes, you hacking into somebody's system is going to help somebody hit Craig Kershaw. So you know what pitch is coming every pitch. I mean, and that's just because he's obviously a crybaby about what's happened to his team over the past few years and needs some excuses. And I thought that we lived in the worst city, the best fans in baseball. That was their deal. But now you got people using this as an excuse for their team. Well, the Cardinals did this to the Dodgers. No. The Cardinals beat the Dodgers. If you remember a few years ago, when Holiday dropped the ball, the Dodgers beat the Cardinals. So it's not like it hasn't been switched before. It's not like the Dodgers are going and getting that far every year in the first place. Why don't you look at your GM situation and basically your owner situation, the two teams in LA trying to buy teams and trying to switch players all around, and why don't you look into that before you look into a situation that has nothing to do with the Dodgers, that from everything that's been leaked has had nothing to do with the Dodgers or any other teams but the Houston Astros. And what's the Astros' excuse? Well, the Cardinals cost us 107 games. No, they don't have one. But this guy, this of course employed by ESPN and employed by a big-time newspaper, he found a way to get clicks and people to talk about it. And for him to go probably on the radio and do a bunch of shows and go on ESPN and talk about it. And then for a guy that's already got his name out there, hey, now you got whole new readers, because people are going to see that and say, what? Or people are going to retweet it on Twitter and say, well, look at this guy wrote about this. And does this make sense to you? So it's all new clicks for him, which is generating money, which raises the bar. For him, raises his salary. So be ready for that, for sure. Be ready for somebody to use this against the Cardinals. And why not? I mean, this has been the team that everybody's had to beat. And it hasn't stopped. It's going on again this year. So, I mean, if you were a Cubs fan, you're loving this. And you kind of hope it would take from the Cardinals' mind off the field. But the players don't seem to care. Mike Matheny don't seem to care. I mean, even if you heard what Jeff Luhnow say, he didn't really seem to care. He went out there and said, hey, I changed my passwords, blah, blah, blah. They could say all that they want, but I did this. I know basically password etiquette, and I'm always changing my passwords. But he said, I don't think that they were trying to do anything to hurt me. So, if he says that, why would anybody else think anything different? And maybe that's just him being quiet. I mean, Bazalak and Bill DeWitt did get out there. They just said, basically, this is bogus behavior, we're going to get down to it, but we weren't aware of it. And you're not going to hear a lot because it's the FBI investigating it. You don't want to mess with the FBI. So, at least I don't. So you're not going to hear much out there other than what's already been said. This story probably dies until you hear something new. And we're real big new. And that's probably the FBI or MLB talking. I mean, it's kind of funny. The only thing like this that ever happened, that happened in the MLB, was in 1989 when a claim, the MLB actually investigated this claim along with the FBI, that the Yankees officials, Sid Thrift and Jim Bowden, who's, has been on ESPN and was a general manager for the Reds and the Washington Nationals, well, they previously worked for the Pirates, and it was said that they could have stole data from the Pirates. Thrift was fired, and one day later, Bowden quit, and the Pirates were worried because Bowden left and Bowden created the computer scouting report system for the Pirates and left without teaching it to anybody. But the funny thing is, this was reported by Steinbrenner himself, the Yankees owner at the time. The Pirates owner at the time said, well, I didn't know nothing until someone contacted me and told me. Now, what the Yankees did was they got rid of their employees. I think Thrift ended up resigning. I think Bowden had stayed on all the way to the end of the year. So it's really in that situation, it's almost comparing apples or oranges because they never felt the claim to be true. We already know that this claim is true. But after this, until you find something bigger, and maybe it's the next thing is finding out who did it, or maybe they found more information. This story's pretty much just going to sit around with the information you got. Because nobody knows. And there's no way to know because they're going to keep this lock and key because it's the FBI. Well, something I found funny to this situation is a video that was put out by The Simpsons. But The Simpsons have been pretty good at kind of predicting stuff over the years. There was a lemon tree stolen out of the show, a full-grown lemon tree. They ended up finding one stolen from a town. They created a craze with interactive farming. Farmville became the craze. They actually helped with the iPhone design on a episode called Eat Up Martha, where one of the boys was saying beat up Martin, and the phone kept saying back beat up Martha, which helped with the Siri design. But there was a little video from 1999 in season 11, and it was called Brother's Little Helper. And this really doesn't pertain to the situation, but it's about the MLB, and it involves the St. Louis Cardinals.
Major League Baseball? I told you they were monitoring my activities.
He's right. This thing's got info on everybody. Like prices, credit ratings, what size baseball hat they wear. Surveillance beam disabled. Market research shutting down. Doesn't that beat all? Hi, folks. I'm Mark McGuire. Big Mac himself. Who'da thunk it?
Young Bart here was right. We are spying on you pretty much around the clock.
But why, Mr. McGuire?
Do you want to know the terrifying truth? Or do you want to see me sock a few dingers?
Dingers!
Yoink.
It's a little funny there. Video from The Simpsons who said they kind of predicted. But this one was actually MLB spying, and they sent Mark McGuire to kind of diverge the situation into him hitting home runs, and he ended up hiding information under his hat. But they've been pretty good at predicting this kind of stuff, or getting close. They predicted a Super Bowl between the Broncos, with the Broncos being a 2.5-point favorite. The voting malfunction machine in 2012. The FIFA thing. There's one with the stolen grease, and one of them even happened in St. Louis at the St. Louis Wing Company. But kind of funny that a show like that, you could pretty much take anything that they said, and they got it pretty close. A spying investigation kind of thing with the Cardinals involved, but it's just something fun to look at. Something fun to talk about. Something else to go with this story to give you some more news. Alright, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with the Cardinals' actual on-the-field stuff. As you're kind of stuck in the middle again. We'll be right back on the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You can tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. You can tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STL. SN. And I'm kind of getting a little bit tired of this clamoring for a trade for the Cardinals. I mean, if you look at the lineup just right now, whenever Halladay comes back, you already have 7 positions set. Your only set not position right now would be first base. And I've already mentioned that there's not really anything you want to give up because all the players out there are Mark Reynolds. And I don't understand what they think that it's going to do to get another bat in the lineup. Because you have bats in the lineup. They're just sporadic at times that the Cardinals need runs. I mean, it would only make sense to really go out and get a backup left-handed first baseman. And then people were acting like it was the greatest thing that ever happened when they called up Garcia and Scruggs. I mean, I'm kind of disappointed they sent down Mitch Harris, but he was struggling and had easily maybe had one at bat the whole time. So yeah, get something else on the roster to make a difference. But as I'll keep saying, they don't play these young guys anyways. And Scruggs did get a start over the weekend, and I think he got a pitch hit in there too. But he's essentially a Mark Reynolds. I mean, he just now got his AAA batterage up over 250. I mean, he's hitting for some pop. So your only way to play him, but though, is to move Reynolds out to left. And not that that's a horrible thing. Mark Reynolds has been playing a great left field when he's been out there. You kind of like what the Cardinals have been getting in him so far. Playing all these positions and doing a very good job. I mean, something you really didn't plan on when you got him. You planned on just being him to be the spawn to Matt Adams. But it's not like that he's playing all that bad to where you have to replace him. And once Halladay comes back, I think you found your center fielder. Gritches is lighting it up, and now that he's playing more and more, he's starting to show that power that everybody's been wanting all year. I mean, Saturday, 3 for 4, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. The game before that, 3 for 5 with a home run and an RBI. That's what you were kind of expecting out of your left fielder that was there before in Halladay. Now, if you could get that out of center field, power, and the speed of defense, I mean, that's something this team that might really need. But to just go out and get a player because the offense sucks doesn't really help the offense any. I mean, it's sporadic. And you're at people think it's going to help to bring someone in. But when they get in this lineup, there's nobody in front of them on base or anything like that. You're in the same situation you're already in, but now you've given up a prospect. And then it's not like there's a bunch of prospects the Cardinals have. But do you want to go get a guy that you know is not going to give you much more than you already have at first base for a prospect? For a guy that might have a pretty good upside. Because I don't think there's as many first basemen out there that people are going to give up. that could be your future. And I don't think Scruggs is going to get that look this season once Holiday comes back, even though you don't know when that's going to be. But it kind of seems like they're molding him in that Colt Long way. Up and down, getting sporadic at bats. Playing behind what people think is actually a backup. But at this point, he has to be your starter with Adams out. And a lot of people want to see that maybe the Cardinals go with maybe Jay to place him first. To maybe get the offense a little more jump start since he strikes out less and gets on base maybe a little more, even though he struggled this season. But I just can't see a throwing him in the lineup with the troubles you already have. I mean, you're getting a pretty good Mark Reynolds so far, 251 average. You didn't expect that. Nobody in the world, I'm telling you right now, didn't expect that. But it's not just him in this lineup. But you got to like what you've been seeing going on with Molina and Hayward. I mean, Hayward in his last 30 is batting .320. In his last 7, .444. Molina's 12 for 26 in his last 7. In his last 15, 16 for 48, .333. And they're starting to belt for a little power, which is nice to see. And Molina's starting to build up his doubles. And with a season that looks like Molina wasn't going to have any home runs over the past 7 games, he got 2. And then Hayward also with the home runs. Starting to see some power from him as he's maybe starting to finally get comfortable at where he's his spot in the lineup. And if you move a guy in different spots, there's different ways you bat in certain spots. I mean, Carpenter wasn't this big take-a-picture guy until he got in that leadoff spot. I mean, Hayward's already got his batting average up to 270. When did you nobody expected that by the time he hit the All-Star break. By the way, you've heard all the bad things about them. So there's 2 guys that were falling back in your lineup that are starting to build up. I mean, Peralta's still on a tear. 3 for 4 in Saturday's game. Had a home run on Sunday. And then even though Wong's starting to fall back, he kind of didn't expect him to just be all this great leadoff hitter all season. But he's still getting on base and getting RBIs. And then Carpenter, his average is also falling, but he had 3 walks the other night with an RBI. He was 1 for 1 with 3 walks. So hopefully, I mean, you start to see the tides changing. I mean, and they're still doing, which if you could, I'm going to keep saying it, keep looking at the stats and they're going to tell you something different, but they're starting to hit up with, and getting 2-out RBIs. I mean, last week versus Twins and Reynolds had a 2-out RBI to win that game 3-2. I think Hayward's home run with 2 outs in the game, they ended up losing to the Twins at home when Mauer and the walk-off was hit in the 9th against Segras. Hayward's home run was with 2 outs. So the stats might tell you something different, but they're starting to hit in certain situations. And you like seeing the blowout games because that saves certain guys in the bullpen. Like Segras, who allowed the home run to tie the game on Thursday. You seen Belial allow 3 runs on Sunday. That's probably because he's been overused. We know Seth Maness is used just about every game. So it's nice to see them games actually splattered into it to give the bullpen a break. For the rest of the games before that, 3-2, 3-1, 2-1. I mean, that's situations where what the Cardinals love to say, stressful innings. And that's what affects some of these players throughout the season more than the pitch count, if you listen to the Cardinals. So when you have games and you're coming into every game like Seegers has been, like Manus has been, Belial at times, them stress innings are going to affect you at some point. You still got to worry about the Jaime Garcia thing. Are you walking on the final thread here? Definitely with the support you're giving him. I mean, 156 ERA, and he's only got the one win. But have they finally got it out of his head that he can't be like that anymore? That he has to leave it on the field? That everything can't affect him? You're hoping that at that point, and maybe that helps out on his arm. Maybe he doesn't have to stress his arm out enough when he thinks he's in a situation where he has to do that. Maybe he's just letting things happen, and the results are now speaking for it. But are you walking on a thin line, kind of waiting on him to break down? I mean, I hope he doesn't. Because then you're really in trouble. Definitely with the way Tawaka's been pitching. Even though he did have a good start against the Twins, it seems like something's just a little off with him. And he's still striking out a lot of batters. But it seems like he's getting into them high pitch counts in the fifth inning. Seems like there's a lot of high pitch counts. The batter seems like he's only walked 2 in the last 2 starts, but it just seems like there's been a lot more than that. And I don't know if he changes his mechanics, if something affected him maybe during the rainout games, going in and out. I don't know, but that's something else you got to worry about because you don't know when that stress reaction is going to hit him. And if one of them guys goes down, I really think that you're all right with Tyler Lyons. And that would actually be good for probably Tyler Lyons in a way, because they'd find maybe you have to take the training wheels off of him and let him roll. I mean, his stats don't look all that great either. But he's going out there and he's giving you 5 innings. He's giving you a chance to win. And then, hey, he gave you some offense on Friday. So, if you're looking for a trade, I would go for that pitcher. But is anybody comparable to what you're going to have to give up? And you kind of hope that the Cardinals kind of fall into one of these lap trades where a team's just trying to give up a player for nothing, for that player to be named later. Or for that cash consideration thing. I kind of think that's where Howard's going to end up falling this season. But you really don't want the Cardinals to go out there and waste money and talent for small gain. Definitely where you're at already in this season. I mean, you could finish below 500 this season. You know, a couple games below it and still have a winning record. So do you want to mess with that by trying to switch up the lineup or maybe inserting somebody in this rotation that doesn't belong? But I do think that you have to keep Lyons on that back burner. And I would rather the Cardinals go get somebody just in case more than one guy gets out. And Lyons, I don't know what they're going to do with him when Lance Lynn comes back on Thursday. But I would love for him to stay up and piggyback Walker Martinez right now and get these inning limits that was sooner rather than at the end of the season. So I don't think you want any other guys to take a break before the playoffs start. and get down the stretch to where maybe you have to fight for a postseason spot because your offense is still where it's at. So I'd rather see like a guy like Lyons stay up and get this before the All-Star break, piggybacking the young guys and seeing what he's got. Now the Cardinals do start a series on Tuesday with the Marlins. And like I said, Lance Lynn on Thursday. You get Carlos tomorrow. Alright, we're going to take a break and come back with the Hometown Rundown. That's next on the Sports Blog of the Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You can tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. You can tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STL SN. Alright, let's start this segment off what we usually do with the Hometown Rundown. And we'll start this week's off with St. Louis FC as they started a big game this week in the fourth round of the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup with MLS team Sporting KC. And that's kind of cool because most teams don't get to do that. And definitely most teams don't get to do it in their first season. And then now you're playing what you want to call your rivals and also your hometown guys in Kansas City. So it's kind of cool to see that and get some exposure and get a lot of people to see him. Is that game was the highest rated or highest attended game of a fourth round of the Lamar Hunt Open Cup ever. 19,000 people in the stands. 19,299. And St. Louis FC put their hearts on there in this game, and they played very well. Both teams were held scoreless for 69 minutes. But in the 70th minute, Graham Zuzi scored to make it 1-0, beating goalie Alex Kahn. And you were kind of hoping for a good game in this one. But it's even better that it was only a 1-0 loss. And St. Louis went out there and played their hearts out, and that probably affected them in the game they played on Friday. But hey, go out there and give it your all during the exposure. Because this is the way that you do get up and get to the MLS, have other scouts see you. So you're kind of glad that they played well. And maybe this leads to bigger and better things. And I'll get to that in a minute. Well, as I said, they resumed to play on Friday in USL action, their third game in 6 days, and they played against the Colorado Springs Switchbacks as they came back home to Worldwide Technology Soccer Park. And it was a slow start for FC, as you could tell that they were tired, and the game was taken out of them quick as a lot of control on the ball by Colorado. And you kind of knew that all that extra pressure was finally going to lead to the goal. And it led to a goal in the 15th minute as the Switchback scored from 25 yards out, beating Alex Kahn. St. Louis came out after some substitutions. They played very dynamite in the second half, but couldn't get a goal. And they lose the game. Even in the loss, Alex Kahn did play very well, making 6 saves. The St. Louis FC are back in action next Saturday. They're at home against the New York Red Bulls. Kickoff is at 7:30. Now in that game on Friday, another 4,700 plus crowd to go see a minor league soccer team. It also came out that St. Louis was the number one TV market for the U.S. Women's Soccer Group stage matches at the FIFA Women's World Cup. So these are the kind of things that you want to come out, as I keep saying. If you want a football team here, or if you want some kind of development in St. Louis to where maybe a MLS team steps up and builds some kind of stadium. I'm not saying a comparable for an NFL stadium, but just something to revitalize downtown if the Rams leave. So I didn't really look back and see where we were before in all these. But I think that St. Louis is starting to realize to get better things here and things that some people actually want, you have to support the minor league teams in the smaller leagues to make a bigger league CU. But it's kind of cool that St. Louis is getting put out there in this soccer market, and maybe it helps us with the football stadium. So we'll move on to baseball in the hometown rundown into the River City Rascals as they start a series with Gateway on Wednesday. They had to play a doubleheader as the series is supposed to start Tuesday, but it was rained out. And in two rainy games for both teams, Game 1, and the Rascals took the loss in 7 innings 5-3. The bullpen kept it close after only a 3-inning start for starter Mark Rutledge, but the bats couldn't capitalize. In Game 2, Dale Stone pitched 5.1 of another 7-inning game, allowing 2 unearned runs, 3 hits, and 3 Ks. Danny Cannella had a big hit with a 2 RBI single for the Rascals and the win. The rubber match was played at GCS Ballpark, Game 3, and it went to 11 innings with the Grizzlies winning the rubber match 3-2. Lucas Luster made his professional debut, taking a shutout into the 9th, but surrendered 2 home runs to tie that game in that inning. Still pitched well, going 8 2/3, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, and had 10 Ks. The Grizzlies won the game on a wild pitch in the 11th inning. The loss put the Rascals' extra inning record at 2-2. The Rascals started a 3-game series on the road on Friday against the Juliet Slammers and won Game 1 4-2. It took 7 pitchers to get through the game for the Rascals, but they kept the Slammers in check throughout the game, including the Slammers trying to rally in the 9th inning. Game 2 was another rain-shortened game, but this one made to the 8th inning with the Rascals losing 3-2. Joe Shano pitched well in the loss, going 6 innings, 2 earned runs, 10 hits, 2 Ks, no walks. Bright spot for the offense was catcher Josh Ludy hit his 5th home run of the year. In Game 3, another rubber match for the teams. The Rascals took the series. Starter Tim Coos gets the win, going 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 0 walks, 4 Ks for his 4th straight win. The Rascals come back home to open a 3-game series against the Rockford Aviators Tuesday, June 23rd at T.R. Hughes Ballpark. So nice to see that the Rascals are still playing well. We'll move on to something I kind of wanted to talk about. As last week we only were at Game 5 in this series. And the Warriors ended up winning Game 6 to win the series 4-2. Andre Iguodala getting MVP as he had a strong Game 5 and also a few games before that after replacing Andrew Bogut in the starting lineup. But more what I wanted to talk about is how they built their roster. I think this is going to be the way that the NBA goes. With this basically building mini all-star teams. And it's going to lead to where the regular season in NBA really isn't going to matter. And you could go on a list and count 4 or 5 people that could probably start just on the... that don't get as much playing time on the Warriors bench. But you got a team like the Clippers who got guys like Lance Stevenson they just traded for, J.J. Redick, Austin Rivers, Jamal Crawford, and they're trying to go after Paul Pierce. I mean, even Memphis got a couple guys that probably start or have more quality minutes for teams than Vince Carter and Tony Allen. Portland has some known guys. Steve Blake, Chris Kaman, Robin Lopez, Nicholas Batum. Dallas has a guy like Monte Ellis, who basically replaced Amari Stoudemire, Jose Barrera. I mean, Washington almost won the series with Paul Pierce this year, and I mentioned him as the Clippers are looking at him. But I think this is what you're going to start seeing now in the NBA, that the big threes are probably no more. And I'm not saying people aren't going to have the Kevin Loves and the LeBron Jameses and Kyrie Irvings on the team. Definitely with the money going up next year. That's why LeBron only signed a 2-year contract, because when that TV money goes up, he's going to go get his money. So I kind of think this is the way that the NBA is going to start going, and where they're going to you're going to have many All-Star teams on the best teams. And that's what Golden State was. I mean, Iguodala, David Lee. I mean, other guys, Sean Livingston could probably be a good player that got more minutes in this league. I mean, a lot of people like their backup center, and I can't think of his name right now, but a lot of people were talking about him as he played good in a couple games for the Warriors in the finals. But you can see already another team on the West Coast in the same state basically going at it the same way the Warriors went at it. Trading people for people that were starters and maybe had a little bit of a struggling year, and saying, hey, we're going to try to go get you a championship if you're our 6th, 7th man. And over the past few years, that has been the acceptable thing. And then you see a guy like Paul Pierce making big buckets for the Wizards. Other players are going to see that and say, man, that might be my real chance to get a championship. Because if you ain't the big player, you're not going to be known anyways. You're not going to get the bigger money deals that you probably think you deserve. But because your name isn't LeBron or anybody like that, you're not going to get that kind of deal. So why not go out there and get championships? Like basically what Iguodala did. So I think that's what you're going to start seeing as on the rosters of the NBA, is teams basically trying to build a mini all-star team. And it also saves your stars in a way. If you have good backups that you can put out there for a long time, it can go out there and keep your team in games or spark your team even at some points. But I might be wrong the way I'm going at it, but I would look for it as in the next couple of years. I kind of forgot to mention this last week, and I don't want to kind of miss over it, but the Blues informed Barrett Jackman that they would not be bringing him back this year. Now, there's something in there if the Blues and Barrett Jackman don't work out something better in free agency, that there might be something that can be worked out. Now, I know Jackman wasn't the big scorer, wasn't out there getting you all the points. Over the past 3 years, maybe slowed up. But he's kind of one of them guys that you want on the team, that could teach these young guys, that will teach these young guys, that go out there and played every game at his hardest, and that love this town. When the players went on strike a few years back, he didn't go and just disappear. He actually went and played for the River Otters, the Missouri River Otters, if you remember them. So it kind of sucks when you get into these points of time and these guys get older and there's certain money that's got to be paid. And the Blues are already working in the red. Plus they're right up against the salary cap, and you got contracts like Tarasenko, who's a restricted free agent right now. You got contracts like Jaden Schwartz. So you can't pay Jackman what maybe, don't say he deserves to be paid, but what he's going to command just for being a veteran and being in this league so long. And you're not going to... And, you know, people just look at the stats and say, oh, he sucks. I mean, his career high in goals, 24 is his career high in assists, 06, 07 along that year. He has career high in points at 27. So you kind of get left out if you're not that big, flashy guy. And then he's kind of in a bad time with the Blues when we're getting knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. And it's the defense that made a lot of miscues. Not only during the playoffs, but during the season too. And of course, he's going to be part of that. And you kind of hampered yourself with certain contracts. I mean, you had to pay Stastny what you paid him, because that's what he was going to get somewhere else. At the time when Bob Meester first came here, you kind of thought that contract was good, but you had to pay him if you wanted to keep him. And now you got to make a choice, and you had to choose Jackman because he saves you money if you just let him go, because he's just free agent. But he's a guy that shouldn't be looked over at all. He stayed here during the good season. He stayed here during the bad. You never heard this guy complain. And now I'm getting all the cliches that sound like a coach. But it's true. In the bad years, he wasn't saying, oh, well, I went out of here because we suck. And he wasn't going out there and taking the credit when they played well in the playoffs. So it's just a proven leader that you want here, but for what you can afford. And the Blues, where they're at, with the salary cap and the players that they need to re-sign, can't afford Barrett Jackman. So if you don't find it here, you kind of hope Jax goes and finds it on a team that has a chance to make a long, good playoff run. Just if you're a sports fan, I mean, that's what you want to do. You want people to leave here, maybe get better. It's kind of sad to see other people winning championships on your watch. But it's going to happen. I mean, look at the Joe Quenneville thing. All right, last but not least, how about this Parkway School District Mizzou graduate pitching now for the Washington Nationals, Max Scherzer? And for a lot of people that want to clamor about not giving the Pujols money, you kind of wish they would have kind of looked into his contract. Just the way he's been pitching, definitely for the Nationals. I mean, his ERA this year is 1.76. He's 8-5. So I should tell you that he's probably not getting all the support he should have. 102 innings, 123 strikeouts in 102 innings, a whip of .80. And many people thought that was a bad contract because they signed Max Scherzer as he was going to 30. But he kind of been getting better and better every year. Now, he had a slight down year last year, but a down year from what he was the year before really isn't that bad of a down year. He actually pitched more innings than he did in his 21-3 Cy Young season. But if you look at it, man, we wouldn't have to worry about nothing about this pitching staff. You don't even know where Jaime would be right now if we had Max Scherzer. And just in his last two starts, 18 innings, 26 Ks, 1 hit, 1 walk, 1 hit by pitch. And the only hit was a broken bat bloop hit. And you can't be all that mad about that's baseball. And you're probably a little happier if you go and look at who got the hit and it's their best player, and Carlos Gomez. That game was against Milwaukee. But then you come back the next start after that and say, hey, I didn't get a no-hitter last time. I'll throw it this time. And he should have had the perfect game. Oh, and didn't that kill people when Jose Tabata of the Pirates leaned into the pitch and cost Scherzer the perfect game with 2 outs? But you kind of like his press conferences. Basically, he just said it's baseball, and I didn't get that good of action on my pitch. He said it kind of backdoored on me. Matt Williams, a manager, when he was asked if he was going to go argue, he said, why would I go out there and mess up what Scherzer had going? And after that, usually when people lose something like that, when something bad happens, and then the next pitch is usually the bad pitch. But he went right back out there, got the out, and got his no-hitter. And to me, I guess it's just me, or I kind of like to follow the St. Louis sports guys, the guys from St. Louis out there doing good. I mean, even the ones doing bad, it's kind of fun to follow them. It's not like David Freese is going out there and having these great all-star years, but it's kind of fun to follow him. I think he's already got 10 bombs this year, even though his average ain't all the way up there. But it's nice to see that from him, going out there and getting some power and helping the Angels out. I mean, just in his last 7 starts, though, this Max Scherzer guy has basically taken over. 5-2, 1.54 ERA, 52 in the third innings, 48 strikeouts, only 8 walks with a .68 whip, walks hits per innings pitched. .68. And it's kind of weird because, pitchers, when they're, get the big contracts and go into their 30s, you gotta worry about them regressing. But it's not like he had a lot of innings before that. His debut was in 2008. I don't think he even reached the 200s until his Cy Young year in Detroit. It just shows you when these pitchers and batters find something, it don't matter what age they are, they can make it work for them for a while. I mean, a lot of these good pitchers last for a long time anyways. That's why they get these kind of contracts. I mean, a lot of these good pitchers will last to 35, 36, 37. If they figured out their niche. The thing is, if it's Max Scherzer's niche is his fastball, that's where you got to kind of start worrying about it. Because you know you're going to lose speed. So when you lose speed, you got to gain movement. And I'm not saying his fastball is a straight fastball or anything. And he knows how to locate it, obviously. With only the 1 walk in the last 18 innings, 8 in his last 52 innings. But is it the speed that gets it by the hitters? Or is it location and movement? But scouts and stuff look into that a lot more than I do. So I'm not saying I'm the stats guru here or the scouting guru and tell you about what his fastball can and can't do. But just bringing things out there to maybe worry about with him. Alright, that's going to do it this week. We'll talk to you next week. I'm Robert Bowlesby, and this has been the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network.